VOA correspondent Caroline Presutti, who is joining us live from Cleveland, Ohio, the venue for next Wednesday's first presidential debate. Caroline, many thanks for speaking to us. The first face-off, first debate between Trump and Biden is set to take place on the 29th of September, 4 days from now. Speak to us about the events leading up to that face-off.
That's right, Michelle. Good morning from Cleveland, Ohio, where the sun is just coming up. You know, Cleveland is located in the northern state of Ohio, right along the Lake Erie, which is one of 5 Great Lakes in this country. And as you mentioned, this is where the debate will be held 4 days from now. Everyone is gearing up for it. The venue is enormous. It is 44,000 square meters large. So you can only imagine how big that pavilion is. But of course, the two candidates, former Vice President Joe Biden and current President Donald Trump, will be the only two there, just a few people in the audience because of the pandemic here.
Well, let's talk about some of the issues they're likely to talk about in this first face-off. Issues of the economy and coronavirus definitely likely to come up. What else do Americans expect?
Well, it's also the two topics that you just heard Brian Patton mention. One would be election integrity and also the Supreme Court. Because now the question is, will the current president appoint the next Supreme Court justice? In which case, then the Supreme Court would have 6 justices that would lean more conservative and 3 justices that would lean more liberal. And experts say that hasn't been seen on the court since about the year 1950. So that is the question. Does a president who faces an election in November appoint a Supreme Court justice, or does he wait for what happens with the election? Some call it the American's choice, to then allow that decision being left up to the new president, or he could win re-election, of course, and then he would have that choice. But the president says no, he will name a new Supreme Court justice, and that could come as early as tomorrow.
All right, I understand that the president's move to replace Ginsburg as fast as possible has also seen non-supporters really view him differently. But let's talk about the polls in the U.S., because Joe Biden seems to be dominating the polls. Critics, however, say that needn't translate to an election victory. Such was the case for Hillary Clinton as well. What is the situation? What are Democrats saying about the polls?
I'm not sure if I'd consider it dominating the polls, because the polls recently will show former Vice President Biden with between a 5 to 13% lead, and of course that could change before Election Day. And you happen to mention about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She does lie in state today in the Capitol, and I just want to point out that she is the first woman to do so in the history of the United States.
Well, talk about the voting now, because Trump, has raised a few concerns. The increase of the number of those who will be voting by mail has increased, and he says there is no integrity in this election. Have there been solutions to bridge this lack of trust in the voting system?
Donald Trump certainly has not been a fan of mail-in voting, and he's been saying that for months. And so he is encouraging all Republicans to show up in person to vote. And we are expecting a larger turnout of Republicans to do so, to go in person to vote rather than mail-in ballots. But the issue with that is that many people are afraid of the coronavirus. So they do want to vote by mail. And again, by mail, you run into those delays, whether or not some of the ballots get thrown out for technicalities, how people have marked the ballot, or simply if they arrive too late through the U.S. Postal Service. So those are things that we're going to have to look at as we get closer to the election. Meantime, election experts say there has been no proof in the past that there has been any problem with mail-in voting. So you have both sides. This will continue to be a controversy, and I can assure you it will be discussed on Tuesday at the first presidential debate between those two candidates.
Right, and Trump goes ahead to say, in his view, this election will end up in the Supreme Court. So let's talk about that, that context and the fact that, Justice Ruth Ginsburg died just a few days ago, and so that vacancy is a key battle for both sides. What happens when this election ends up in the Supreme Court?
Well, that remains to be seen, because that has never happened except for, as again, my colleague Brian Patton mentioned, in Florida. But you have to remember, a lot's going to happen before then. Many Republican leaders came out yesterday and said there will be a peaceful transition of power. One being the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, another being former presidential candidate Marco Rubio, now a senator from Florida. They have both said there will be a transfer of power. There will be someone inaugurated on Inauguration Day in January. So they are reassuring the public that there will be. The president, you know, he didn't say that he wouldn't transfer power. He said there could be a possibility of a continuation. So again, we're all waiting to see. We're seeing who says what, and then of course on November 3rd we'll all know the answer.
All right, and coronavirus.
Or maybe not. It could be after then too.
Absolutely.
You know, if it takes a while to count the ballots.
So this election is happening smack in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. The whole world has been watching how the U.S. is doing this, and now allegations that President Trump may have had information about coronavirus before it became public information. Critics saying that that piece of information could greatly hurt his campaign trail. What has the situation been since that revelation?
Well, it hasn't hurt his polling numbers at all. If you look at the polling numbers, they have been steady. So even after the Republican National Convention, they held steady as well. So I'm not sure if that indication will affect people's way to vote. And, you know, you might ask, will the debate affect people, which way they go toward either candidate? And a lot of experts say the debate really reinforces voters whichever candidate they had already chosen to vote for. It doesn't necessarily pull in any voters who were maybe wavering on the other side. And on the other side of the coin, there aren't that many undecided voters here in this country this presidential term. So it may not sway them either, but I can assure you it will be a very interesting debate. A lot of topics, a lot of contention between the two. These are experienced debaters. Former Vice President Joe Biden, of course, has been on the debate stage many times, not only when he was vice president, but also during the primary. Took him a while to kind of get used to the debate format. He did better as the debates went on, and of course that's the same situation historically as an incumbent president begins the debate. He kind of gears up and gets better as the debates move on too. And we're expected to have 3 presidential debates this year.
All right, and finally, Caroline, how are these two, Biden and Trump, preparing for this face-off? I mean, we saw Biden just the other day speaking to people, and he says in his campaign trail, a few people pose as Trump and ask him a few questions. Have we seen how they're preparing for the debates?
That's usually how it goes. They do have someone sit in Biden's case, then the current president. Somebody would appear as President Donald Trump, and there would be a moderator, and they just practice. They just kind of go over topics. They know the topics, the 6 topics that will be discussed, and they go over the debate format. They create what they will say. They create what we call talking points, and that's what they narrow in on. That's what they zero in on, rather, and they remember those talking points whenever the moderator then ask their question. They go back to those talking points. I can tell you a little bit about the moderator too. Chris Wallace from Fox News. He is planning 6 topics. It'll be 90 minutes long. So each of those topics will have 15 minutes that he'll allow each candidate to speak, and then he'll do follow-up questions there. Now, how is the president getting ready? The president says he's going day to day with day-to-day issues and concerns and responsibilities. So he's more concentrating on what he's doing today as president, rather than looking toward the debates. But I would guess behind the scenes they are prepping him.
That is Caroline Presutti. She's a VOA correspondent joining us live from Cleveland, Ohio, which is a venue